All right, at 6 o'clock, we'll go ahead and get our regular city council meeting started this evening. Welcome, everyone. We're here in the city council chamber at Washington City Hall. Our meetings are streamed live on our YouTube station at washingtoncity.org, and they're also archived there for viewing later. And if you even go onto the agenda, you can hyperlink to the agenda items if you have any item that you're interested in but not able to make it. We absolutely appreciate our association with the Interfaith Council. And so it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Michael Cruz of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship to come forward and start our meeting. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council, Unitarian Fellowship brings you greetings and thank you for your service to the city and to the county. There's a lot of negative news that we've heard locally and throughout the world, so I wanted to share something with you that's a little more optimistic. Martin Luther once said, "If I knew that the world would end tomorrow and go to pieces, I would still plant my apple tree." So I wrote this poem called Martin Luther's Tree. The world may end tomorrow, so let's plant a tree today. Grab a shovel along with me and plant in a loving way. And when the dawn breaks tomorrow, just like it did today, we'll water our tree together in a circle and sing away. With the passing of the seasons and the months turning into years, we'll pick the fruit from our tree and laugh at past false fears. For God is in his heaven, in the sunlit sky above, and a spirit lies within us with faith, hope, and love.
Thank you. It's a beautiful poem. I've invited our City Attorney Thad Segmiller to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So before I call for an approval of the agenda, I'd just like to excuse Councilman Belliston. He is out of town and not able to attend this evening and asked to be excused. Council, I will make note that we do have a need to go into closed session this evening for purchase, exchange, or lease of property, pending or potential litigation, and character or professional competence of an individual. That said, I will turn to you for a motion to approve the agenda as outlined.
Mayor, I can make a motion that we approve our May 8th regular city council meeting with a note that we do have need to go into a closed session.
We have a motion by Councilman Ivey.
Yeah.
Second by Councilman Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion is approved. Our next item on the agenda is announcements. Many of you may have heard the news recently of a police officer in the city of Santaquin who was recklessly, carelessly targeted and killed. And so I'd like to just read a mayoral proclamation to that effect. Whereas on May 5th, 2024, Sergeant Bill Hoosier, a Utah native with 8 years of law enforcement experience, was intentionally killed in a hit-and-run incident while in the line of duty. And whereas Sergeant Hoosier's wife of 29 years, 2 children, 1 grandchild, along with many friends, family, the city of Santaquin, Utah, and residents and first responders all over the state are left in a state of shock and mourning. And whereas Sergeant Hoosier died doing what he loved, serving his community and ensuring a high quality of life, of peace and safety as a first responder. And whereas a senseless act by one troubled individual has forever altered the lives of many, and whereas our first responders and law enforcement courageously lay their lives on the line every day to protect and keep us safe, Now therefore, I, Cress Staley, Mayor of Washington City, and the Washington City Council hereby proclaim May 8th, 2024 as Law Enforcement Remembrance Day in Washington City, and urge all residents to observe this day in remembrance of Sergeant Bill Hoosier by thanking our law enforcement officers and honoring all who serve and sacrifice to preserve peace and safety in our community. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the Great Seal of Washington City, Utah, this 8th day of May, 2024. At this time, I'd like us to just take a moment of silence in honor of Sergeant Bill Hoosier. Thank you. I just told Chief that I wasn't going to do this. I walked back there and told him. But we have a remarkable police department. And when you see something like this that happens 3 hours up the road, it just makes you think of those officers in uniform here in our city and the sacrifice that they make. And Chief, I know you gave me some pins. I know Councilman Coates already got his on. Will you just come forward and just share a few words with the council, with the community, as we try to wrap our heads around this, and I'll go ahead and hand these pins out that you shared for the council.
I don't know if there's Kleenex up here, but we might need it. But this is plenty. But thank you. Thank you for recognizing Sergeant Hoosier and for his sacrifice for his community. And for the citizens of Utah. We leave our families on the daily not knowing if we're going to be coming back through that door. But we do it willingly, and we do it with pride, and we're proud to serve the communities in which we represent. Washington City has been my home for decades, and there's not another city that I would ever want to work for, because I feel the love and I feel the appreciation and support from this council, but also from our citizens. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate the support, and I appreciate that you wear these pins to show of that support that you have for your law enforcement community. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And please, as you go back to your department, just please express the ongoing continued support and concern from the mayor and council and administration, and let them know that we continue to back the blue in every way.
Thank you.
The only announcement I have for this, well, before I go to the one announcement, I just want to publicly thank all of those who, especially our employees, community members, volunteers, all those who made Cotton Days such a great success this past week. We have a rich heritage with the Cotton Mission and a lot of sacrifice, and so it's always a great time to have those events and see that community come together. We had a lot of great events, and a lot of them happened right here at Veterans Park. Another event will happen on May 11th from 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. It's a fire safety event. Chief Evans and some with his crew from the fire department, they will, along with the police department, they'll be participating, doing bike safety. There'll be a bounce house and other activities, and the state will be there to check car seats and things. So we're very fortunate to have a police department and fire department both engaged in the safety and well-being of our community. Council, are there any announcements that I may have missed? Okay, and that, seeing none, we'll go on to the next item, which is declarations of abstentions and conflicts. Anything to declare this evening? Okay, move right along with the consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of approval of the minutes from our city council meeting on April 24th, 2024, the board audit report from April 2024, and it also includes an extension of time, a second extension of time for the Sienna Hills Auto Mall. Any minor clarifications on that? If not, I'll look to you for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'll make a motion we approve the consent agenda as outlined.
Thank you, Councilman Coates. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councilman Casperson. The consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is award of bid. We have 4 items.
Got to vote on it, Mayor.
Oh, did we not vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to item 5, award of bid. We have 4 of those. Come on forward, Rick Hansen, our power director. The first one, item 4A, is consideration to award a bid for the Grapevine substation reclosures to G&W in the amount of $115,818.
Yeah, all 4 of these items are for purchasing some of the major equipment for our next substation there at Grapevine site. So this first item is for basically, it's a lower voltage circuit breaker. We received 4 bids, only one met the full requirements of the spec, and that's G&W, which also we have, all but one sub has those same reclosers in it, and so we would recommend that we go that route as outlined. I can go into as little or as much detail as you want. That's probably plenty.
Any questions on this particular bid item?
So just one, Mayor. Rick, did you mention that you had one bid on this that
No, we had 4, there was only one that met all the spec requirements.
met all of them of the bid?
Yeah, the others were missing a second set of CTs that they can't provide, so.
Ready for a motion on this particular item?
Yeah. I'll make a motion, Mayor, that we approve the $115,818 to G&W for the Grapevine substation recloser.
You've heard the bid by Councilman Coates. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
That bid is approved to G&W in the amount stated. Next item is consideration to award a bid for the Grapevine substation power transformer to Virginia Transformer in the amount of $710,903. Mr. Hansen.
Okay, again, for the same substation site, for the transformer, we received 5 bids. Virginia was the low bidder, and they're also all but one of our substation transformers are Virginia transformers, so it'll be basically a duplicate of the last 3 we've bought, and they've all worked very well, so we'd recommend that you approve it for Virginia for the amount shown.
If there are no questions, I'll call for a motion.
Just a question, really quick, Mayor. So the delivery timeframe is 60 to 62 weeks. Is that at our request, or is that when it'll be available?
That's actually, I think, the best delivery out of the group. Over 2 years right now is common, so
Yeah.
that's actually a good delivery, believe it or not.
So those timeframes, those delays are actually getting shorter.
We're crossing our fingers it gets here.
Yeah, that's true. I don't honestly believe what anybody tells us anymore,
Yeah.
but that's what
With
the
power,
current numbers are.
you pay them and hope it shows up.
Yeah.
But if you don't pay them, it's not showing up,
I
so.
was actually impressed when I saw it was 60 to 62 weeks, so hopefully.
Yeah, that's actually a really good lead time right now on that type of equipment.
Councilman Ivey, do the honors on this motion.
Sure, Mayor. I make a motion that we award a bid for the Grapevine substation power transformer to Virginia Transformer in the amount of $710,903.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
That transformer is approved to Virginia Transformer. Next item, 5C, is consideration to award a bid for the Grapevine Substation Circuit Breakers to Siemens Energy in the amount of $101,199.
On this particular piece of equipment, we, I guess, sort of received 3 bids. One was late, so we couldn't really consider it. The other one was just a budgetary number, so that it wasn't a firm number. Again, similar to the other pieces of equipment, the Siemens breakers are what we have at our other substation locations, so we have no problem with that and recommend that we go with Siemens.
Any questions, clarifications for the Power Director? Be happy to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Grapevine Substation Circuit Breakers to Siemens Energy in the amount of $101,199.
I have a motion by Councilman Coates,
Second.
second by Councilman Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
The circuit breakers are approved unanimously and awarded to Siemens Energy. Item 5D, this is consideration to award a bid for the Grapevine Substation voltage regulators, also to Siemens Energy, in the amount of $271,140.
Okay, for this item, we received 2 bids. Most of our other substation regulators are Cooper Eaton. They were the high bid at $481,000. So we're recommending going with Siemens regulators. They're a good product. I've used them on different projects over the years. Have no problem with them, but they're almost half the price, so.
Any questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Grapevine Substation voltage regulators to Siemens Energy in the amount of $271,140.
I have a motion by Councilman Coates,
Second.
second by Councilman Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
And the voltage regulators are awarded to the same company.
So before Rick leaves, can I ask him a question?
Please, Councilman.
So Rick, we went over this on Power Board, but I'd like you to explain it to the council of the increase just in power infrastructure in the past few years. I know we've seen it across the board, but the percentage.
Yeah, in fact, I did a little spreadsheet here, and the last substation we did is when we rebuilt the Staley sub around 300 East. These 4 items at the amounts awarded are 211,000 or 211% more than they were just under 4 years ago.
So you can see the increase we're seeing.
It's just, and so this whole substation project will probably be roughly double what it was 3 or 4 years ago. So.
But we're still bidding it out, getting multiple bids. It's just what the market is bearing right now with the inflationary costs. So I just wanted you guys to realize that. So as we go into, I know Rick's working on the updated master plan and those kind of things, that's going to be reflected in that for the impact fee study as he moves forward. So just keep that in mind. So.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate that comment.
Before we let you off the hook, will you also just, for those in attendance, explain the location of this new substation? I think that was very creative. I think it's a really cost-effective way in having that dual purpose, kind of strategically located. We just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, the substation site is just off of exit 13, where the traditional Grapevine trailhead's been. But it'll be located or co-located with a pretty large trailhead that's going in. There'll be restrooms, parking, equestrian parking, and the substation's kind of in the middle of that. And it was done in conjunction with the Habitat, with the developers in the area. So I think we were able to turn it into a win-win for everybody.
Well, and what I like about that is it shows just a lot of consideration for taxpayer dollars to be able to have a really nice trailhead amenity that gives access up into that Red Cliffs Desert Reserve, but also can hide in there a very much needed substation with the growth that's happening there. I think that's a smart dual purpose. Keep up the good work.
We will try. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we have a few public hearings this evening, both in regards to the budget. We are in the process of approving our fiscal year budget, which starts July 1 and goes through June 30. Just by raise of hand, do we have any individuals here for this specific item? Okay, perfect. I'm going to forego the what I typically say before we might have a heated item, because I know the individuals who's going to speak tonight. So item 6A, this is a public hearing to consider adopting the Washington City 2024-2025 fiscal year budget. Before I open the public hearing, is our finance director, Brian Brown, did you have anything to say before I open the public hearing? No? Okay. At this time, I will formally open the public hearing, and anyone who has been following this process or has any thoughts or feedback on the upcoming budget, please come forward at this time, and just remember to state your name for the record, and most well-spoken comments can be 2 to 3 minutes, but there is not really a trap door, although I've joked about that in the past. Come on forward. The public hearing is open.
So good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Tom Kwesiak, and I'm a new resident of Washington City. My wife and I built a house, bought a house in Coral Canyon, and we're looking forward to retiring here this fall and living here permanently. We moved here from Olympia, Washington, and we lived there for 30 years. I watch the city council meetings on YouTube, which I know makes me a weirdo, but I watched with great interest because I want to make sure that what I saw happen in Olympia, where I lived for 30 years, doesn't happen here in Washington City in many ways, not just the budget. I'll have to say that after taking a look at the budget, it's refreshing to actually see a budget that isn't increasing every year automatically beyond inflation, beyond population growth. And I think I see that in this proposed budget. Just as a comparison, in Olympia, where I live right now, the budget increased by 6.5% in 2023 and 8.5% again this year, with almost no population growth in the city. And in doing that, they also cut the police budget by $700,000. And so this is a city of about 56,000 people. So budgets are a representation of the priorities of a community. And in this budget, it's clear that not only is public safety, but parks and the normal things have been made priorities in the budget. But I think also it's important to note that the taxpayers of the city have also been a priority in this budget. By showing a restraint in the budget, you're protecting residents of the city and their incomes, their families, from further erosion of their spending power. We just heard about inflation's not just on transformers, but it's on food and gas and everything else. And so I appreciate the fact that you guys are showing that restraint in this budget and balancing the needs of the city with also the needs of your citizens. So thank you very much for all you do. I appreciate it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. It's nice to see you, and it's nice to see you last night at the Utah Tech baseball game. And shout out for the boys from Southern Utah who beat the mighty Utah Utes. I left at the bottom of the 8th, so I didn't know the final score, but I think we won by about 4 or 5 runs. But more importantly, thank you for noticing. Thank you for your comments. And I can tell you that your observation is spot on. This council, this administration, this budget reflects the leadership's priorities. And it is with much restraint, even with incredible pressures. But we value the type of community this is, and we value the residents who live here, and frankly, all of the city employees who do their part to make it happen. Are there any other comments to come forward on this public hearing about the budget before I close this particular public hearing? Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Are there any comments from the council on this item before we move to the next?
Yeah, Mayor, I wanted to make a comment. I mentioned it to Jeremy, but I wanted to let the council know, one item we did miss that needs to be a carryover is the landscaping on George Washington Boulevard Triangle. So we just need to carry it over from last year's budget. It wasn't in this year's, so I noticed that. I just want to make sure it's in there. So I'm sure Brian will take note of that.
Good point. Thank you for noticing that.
And then I also want to thank the staff. I mean, we asked the staff to give us a really tight budget so that we could, and they worked hard to get there. So I want to appreciate Jeremy and his team getting us to where we need to get. I mentioned it before. It was the first year in 4 years that we didn't increase. We actually held and actually decreased a little bit. So I was super excited that we're past this weird, I mean, we were growing so fast, and inflation hit, but the last 2 years have been the same. So I do appreciate us trying to norm, and we keep growing, right? We're not slowing down, it seems like, so.
And we're keeping that service level high.
We're doing more with less, is what I should say. So thank you, staff, for doing that.
Well said. Thank you, Councilman Coates. Any other comments in regards to this budget that you've all been working on for so long?
No, Mayor, I don't necessarily have a comment about that, but I wanted to reference our new citizen, welcome. We appreciate you moving here, and, you know, his words resonate. You know, we understand that not just Transformers, but it costs more to live here now than what it has in the last several years. And the thing that's really good in this process of securing a city budget is that when we reach out to our staff and employees and tell them the lay of the land as far as finances right now. You know, someone made a joke, but if this were Christmas, it'd be like a socks and underwear Christmas. We don't spend money that we don't have. We don't fund public safety with one-time money. We have great leadership and we have great financial team. And just want you to know, I appreciate your comments because yeah, our overall budget numbers have gone down in the last 2 years, but to be able to do that and not cut services, you know, the council has some really good partners to work with on that, and we appreciate your comments.
And I would add, we finished some really big capital projects over this last year or two. So those are wrapping up. And so our general fund is healthy. We keep our reserves where they need to be. So we're in pretty good shape. Any further comment from council or staff on this particular item before we go to the next public hearing? Seeing none, we'll go to item 6B. This is a new requirement by the state legislature. So this is a public hearing to consider adopting the Washington City 2024-2025 fiscal year compensation budget. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing for anyone in attendance who would like to speak about the compensation that we're paying our employees that work here within the city. Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing and thank the state legislature for one more layer of red tape that we are happy to abide by. And so that public hearing is now closed. Council, I don't imagine you have any comment on, I think I summed up our thoughts on Big Brother. Item 7, ordinance. We've got a few ordinance tonight. Item 7A, this is consideration to approve an ordinance for a code amendment for Title 9, Chapter 8B-5. This is for side yard setbacks located in an R110 zone. This has already been to the Planning Commission, and the public hearing occurred there. So I will turn some time to Drew Ellerman. But before I do that, is there anybody in attendance particularly for this item? Side yard setbacks. I know it's like most of us are really engaged with those. Go ahead, Drew. I'll stop being sarcastic now.
Yeah, this is the heavy stuff we deal with in the city right here. Washington City is wishing to amend a portion of the city code, specifically as stated by the mayor, Title 9-8B-5, titled Area Width and Yard Regulations. That's where we find our setbacks within our single-family residential zones. We're proposing to change the side yard setback for the R110 zoning district only. It is proposed to go from 10 feet on both sides to a proposal of 8 feet and 10 feet. So that's 8 on one and 10 on the other for those setbacks in an R110. We also put in there with no two homes closer than 18 feet. So if I use my 8 foot on one side, the neighbor right next to me on that same side would have to put a 10, and so on down the street. So that's where the proposal is. The new chart looks as follows, as you see on the screen in the red area. Again, the R110, that 8 foot with the asterisks, adding the note down below that no two homes would be that 18 feet. So we took this to the Planning Commission last week, and they held a public hearing. They reviewed it in their May 1st, 2024 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the proposed changes by amending Title 9-8B-5 area, width, and yard regulations onto you, the City Council. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have on this proposed change.
Thank you, Drew, for your staff report. Council, questions for staff, and then I'll open it up for discussion amongst the council as well. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Drew, on that asterisk there where it says in this zone district, no two homes are allowed to be closer than 18 feet to each other. Who keeps track of that so that we don't run into problems? Because if you have two houses side by side that have an 8 foot setback, I have no problem with the setbacks. I'm just foreseeing problems with who keeps track of that. Because if two homes are side by side with a 8 foot setback, that's 16 feet.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, so what'll happen, and we'll just have to, in this particular case, like we do with some of our PCDs, there's a few of the, I don't know if you call them, they're not districts, but they are just laid out, and they have this same kind of a scenario. They'll have 5 on one, 10 on the other, but no two homes can be closer than 15 feet. When we do that, and we know that this is going to be R110, we just have to make a special recognition when it goes to our people in plan review. In an R110, they're going to have to, if they don't state it, we're going to have that applicant put on where the home is next door to them, what the footage is. And then when the inspector goes out, measures that, where that footing's going in, he'll just have to now be in line to check next door to make sure it is a 10 or more.
so I understand that, but what if the city overlooks it and makes a mistake and I go and dig footings and get all my rebar in there and call for an inspection and we're out of compliance? Then do I have to fill it all in, pull my rebar out and dig new footings? So I just see potential problems with this. So
Well,
I'm in
those-
favor of the setback change, but I would like to see that asterisk just go away. I'm fine with the homes being 16 feet apart, just to save problems in the future, so.
That's fine. Like I say, we deal with it quite a bit, in other areas. It's not something that'll be brand new. It will be brand new in the R110, but not for, our department, that we have them in other, throughout the city. In Coral Canyon, there's, they have a zone that has that. Sienna Hills, Brio. And, is there gonna be one that might get missed? Yeah, I'm not gonna sit and say they're all 100%. I'll
Right,
bet you I can go out there right now and find, at least one in one of those things that we ended up with two smaller ones next to each other. But in the case where you said yes, especially when you turn your site plan in and it meets that's where it'll all come in. If you're following your site plan approved on your plans, you probably shouldn't have that issue, right? You would have had it whether it's an 8 foot or it could have been 8 on both sides or whatever. That won't matter, but if that's the case, we'll just have to have that verified up front. So
I just think the problem, like he's saying, is that you might do your site plan, but a lot of times you don't know what your neighbors did. But your site plan meets it, plus the R18 has 8 and 10, and doesn't have an asterisk, it's the same situation. So,
I'm just saying we do deal with it in some PCDs. I'm just,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's there. It's not like, just because it's, found in Coral Canyon, it won't matter if they'll just, when we go through and do our reviews, and if it's there, we'll just have to start asking people saying, hey, on this 8 side, can you go check your neighbors for us and just put that on there? So,
Good comments, good question, good response. So further comments?
the comment I had, Drew, was I want to make sure this counts for our credit with the state.
Where's Eldon? No?
Why not?
Yeah, you called and checked with them, didn't you, Eldon, and they said no? Because they're just being,
We'll make
what
a
was
note
that
of
term
it.
you used a little earlier about the big,
Yeah, I
the
shouldn't
mayor?
have. I got a little
But
list
it's-
tonight.
But there's truth in.
I rely on
and
Councilman
that
Ivey
it
to keep me in
should, to
check.
be
a little
honest with
better.
you. We're going back, we're making changes to our,
I think we
I
should
think it
submit
should
it
fit
and say,
back.
how can you tell us what is?
yeah. And
Because
I
we
think
are,
could-
this is making
I'd like to
them-
make an appeal up
it's more
to
of-
her boss.
It's more affordable.
Eldon, city planner, come shed some light on this.
It's more
Just like
affordable to
to
build a
make
bigger
one-
house on a smaller lot.
One quick comment, they're very strict. They laid out the letters that we can choose from to meet those requirements, and unfortunately, this isn't one of their requirements.
Yeah.
Well, I say we put it on anyways.
So if there's good news here, it's that changes that you're making are helping with affordability. The bad news is it doesn't count towards, again, the red tape that
So
the
we're
state
actually
has required.
helping to solve the problem, but we're not getting credit for it.
Exactly.
Okay.
For the 110%ers, that's
The
what
good
we
news
said.
is, the good news is we're gonna still put it on there and just say we did it because we're doing it. We're doing it just outside of
Hey,
what they
Eldon,
want.
add to the list. Further comment on this side?
So Mayor, I was just waiting for comments for the council. Are we there now? Do you
Yes.
want- Okay. So just my general comments on this agenda item is that I like it, and I'll tell you why. I'm a garage guy. I like the idea of having a wider driveway on one side where you could offset your house and get it 8 foot, because it's really, for a lot of us, it's just kind of vacant space on that side, the short side. And, you know, I know we've all take property rights very serious, and we want to make sure that we maintain the person's right to be able to build on their property and do what they want. But the one thing that concerned me has been addressed, because I wouldn't want the actions of one homeowner to negatively impact another potential home builder that's going to be next to them, where they would be restricted to not be able to build if they wanted the 8 foot. So I'm in favor of removing the red where the asterisk is, or reducing it to 16 feet as well. And that's where I'm at, council, if that's.
I share similar thoughts as you do. As I went through our, different communities within our city, I do notice that on one side, there tends to be, rocks on one side and then on the other side, there's the space for, a driveway to a garage, or, in the back, or it seems like it's naturally happening where there's more space on one side than there is on the other. And as I've looked at other cities, I've noticed that, their side yards have a different, the different setbacks. And so, I don't know how you guys feel, but what would be the difference of not having, for an R112, could you have an 8 and 10 for that? Or, how far up does it make a difference for that? We have 10 and 10 and 10, 10, and it goes up, but, I've seen other cities where it's, the same all the way up through the larger lots too.
That would depend on the dimension of the lot. It might be an R112, but if it were a narrower lot, is that kind of what you're?
Yeah,
They have a minimum frontage though, that they have to have. I like the breakup. I thought this was a good change, but I do like the breakup of going to, as you get larger lots, you have bigger setbacks, because people want, more space between each other's homes typically. So I think it's a good transition between them.
Particularly in the R110, because sometimes it can be tricky to get that lot, that home, that footprint to sit on the lot the way that you want to. And so I like it. I think it's loosening regulation rather than tightening, and I think that's kind of where I see this group going. Council, this has been approved to be, it's been recommended by the Plan Commission to be approved. You're welcome to make a motion to approve it as is. You're welcome to modify. You're the ultimate decision-making body in this one. Councilman Harrison, do you want to take a stab maybe at a motion on this?
You bet, I'd love to. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve an ordinance for a code amendment for Title IX, Chapter 8B-5, side yard setbacks located in an R-1-10 zone but I would like to add that we delete the asterisk there and make it okay to be 16 feet apart. So,
You've heard the motion clearly. Would somebody like to second that motion?
Second.
The motion by Councilman Henderson, second by Councilman Coates. This is an ordinance, so let's go roll call. We'll start on my left. Councilman Henderson.
aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
And that is approved unanimously. Thank you, Drew and staff, for your work, and Plan Commission for your recommendation. Next item on the agenda is 7B. This is consideration to approve an ordinance for General Plan Amendment G-24-03 from LD Low Density to NCOM Neighborhood Commercial located at 2651 South Washington Fields Road. The applicant is Brian and Jenica Burnett. And before I invite the city planner, Eldon Gibb, to come forward, by raise of hands, who in the audience is here for this particular item? Great, okay. The public hearing did occur at the last meeting, but I will allow some public comment on this. I will also allow for the applicant to come and speak before and or after that comment. But right now, I'm going to look to our city planner, Eldon Gibb, to give the staff report and present to the council and those following the meeting. Mr. Gibb.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The current land use designation is low-density residential. The applicant is seeking approval to have the land use designation changed to neighborhood commercial for the possibility of developing the area into a neighborhood commercial project. The neighborhood commercial designation allows for administrative, professional, and C1 zoning designations. The surrounding general plan land use designations are low density to the north, east, and south, and neighborhood commercial to the west. And that was recently changed back in September of last year. Staff has reviewed the requested change and would like to note the low density residential to the east and south, along with the need to work through the access road with utility extensions and access for the property. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on May 1st, 2024, and discussed their desire to amend the general plan on the larger scope, encompassing the broader picture, noting that they would like to see this property general planned as planned unit development, which staff also supports. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on May 1st, 2024, and recommended denial, and that was a 3-1 vote of G-24-03, amending the general plan land use map from the current low density to the proposed neighborhood commercial designation as outlined in the exhibit. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Eldon. Council, questions for the city planner?
Just a clarification. So their application was for low density to neighborhood commercial. The Planning Commission has said they denied that, but they recommended it moving forward as a planned unit development. Is that correct?
They didn't recommend it to move forward.
Suggested?
They denied the request. They thought it'd be a better fit as a PUDC and recommended council to consider that.
Thank you. Further clarifications, questions, comments, interaction with staff?
The comments I have, and I was in the Planning Commission meeting, so I heard all the discussion with the public comment, but the concerns I have on the project is, the big one's access to me, is that the current access is set up for a single family home, and then we're putting a commercial development with not adequate access, in my opinion, to make that work. So I am concerned about the location of the access next to Merrill Road, and then I'm also concerned about it being big enough and wide enough to handle an event center. And then also it being, my other concern is neighborhood commercial. I'm definitely not okay with neighborhood commercial. So those are some of the things that I'm concerned with. I would assume they would have, if they wanted to change it to PUD commercial, they would have brought updated exhibits and be ready for us that way, but it doesn't look like, I'd have to ask why that didn't get done between the last week or so. if that was the intent. So,
Well, it's just a general plan, so we wouldn't see exhibits until the zone change.
you'd see an updated exhibit if you are changing it to PD general plan.
Correct, yeah.
So that's what I assumed they would do if that was their intent, but we'll let them explain what their intent is. So those are my concerns, access and putting a commercial right behind that existing low density. I'm concerned about not having a buffer, and the planning commission, that's what they mentioned, is not having a buffer. And with a PUDC, there's a lot more detail that we have to go into when we get to that point. But also, I feel like we're spot master planning this. I mean, if we're gonna look at it, we should look at it as a whole, that whole corner piece, that whole field, what's our plan in the future? I mean, it's a general plan, so I feel like we're spot general planning it. A little concerned about spotting it, so.
You know, I think, thank you, Mayor. So as you look at this as it builds out, it wouldn't surprise me if the property owners closer to Washington Fields Road would come in for a commercial application. I mean, it's just, that's where we're at in our period of time in the fields right now, as we've seen Whammers open up. We've got a development going in on 3650 South and River Road, or excuse me, on Washington Fields Road. And I look at this piece here and the intended use for this piece here and the use, I actually see that as a buffer because of commercial that may come in closer to the street. Now, I would like to know the road. I don't know the width of the road and whether or not that is wide enough for a commercial development, but if it is, you know, I actually see it as a good buffer. I don't know, I love the fact that it's gonna maintain some of the history of the fields, that it's gonna try to secure the history and heritage of the fields and green space and open space. And heavens know, we need more venues in the area, but I would like to know about the road, Mayor. I don't know who you want to ask, but I would like to identify whether that road is adequate or if it's not.
John, would you like to, Hinkie, address the councilman's question on access? Yeah, maybe you didn't think I saw you back there.
I was trying to hide the back.
Thank you.
The road as it exists, no, it doesn't meet our requirements. They were notified during staff dev and stuff that it would have to be brought up to our standards. I know that they've had apparently some conversations with the adjoining landowner about working that out, stuff for additional right-of-way or whatever they would need, so.
So they would need to acquire additional right-of-way to make that road work?
Yes.
Purchase it from other property owners?
Yes.
Okay.
And I know you mentioned in the planning commission, it'd have to be a right in, right out. I just, looking at it, it's, can you zoom out more, Drew? When we look at the project, the whole corner as a whole, as we do these developments, maybe we should be putting the access where they belong, not just where they were. If we're having to improve, widen and buy right away. I mean, it's like literally you're 200, not less than 200 feet from the intersection, a major intersection of Washington Field Road and Merrill Road. It just concerns me that we're now throwing in a quick right in, right out, right close to it. Now, if it's a single family house, makes sense to me. It happens, it's existing, that's their legal right to get to that parcel that they've had for a long time, but it definitely is not adequate as we go into a commercial, if that was what we were looking at. So that's what concerned me, is the fact that it's so close to Merrill Road, plus it's not wide enough. In this application, they don't have the right of way yet, so we don't know that that's guaranteed. And I understand it's a general plan, but if we just need to look at all those things. And Councilman Ivey, you might be right, it might be a good buffer, but they're proposing a neighborhood commercial right now. And my concern is, what if they decide not to do their venture, or in 10 years they change their venture and all of a sudden you got a 3-story commercial building behind? It's just different. It could potentially be changed.
And that assumption was on my part, because I like you, I wouldn't approve it as neighborhood commercial. But with a PUD, we would be able to identify the concerns of the residents and be able to identify them in that project so that we could mitigate them or make them better, or have a better view of how this would look when it was completed. But yeah, that was an assumption on my part, that the approval would be, and ultimately be a PUD.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I was trying. I was just saying my opinion of it with it currently
right
as what it was proposed to us.
Councilman Coates, what do you think would be a good buffer there? That you said, you know, I watched the planning commission also, and that was brought up. That would be a good, what would be a good buffer to have there? Because I do see, you know, the benefit of having a buffer between low residential and commercial, but I'm just wondering, you know, what would be a good buffer there? And then also, I like the idea of doing the whole area, excuse me, all at once, but I also know the process it takes to do that. And so, you know, we've had prior applicants come in and we've wanted to look at different areas and just the time that it takes. You know, you hate to have someone waiting around for government to get around to, you know, going over that whole area. And so I like the direction of heading towards a PUD. And so we have more oversight about, you know, what is going to be placed there, especially with the concerns from the residents. But I'm just, if you don't mind, what do you think would be a good buffer there?
So with my experience, there's lots of things that can be a buffer, you know. If that house wasn't there, you can have a transition feathering effect that we have where it becomes townhomes and then transitions into commercial or apartments or whatever gets transitioned from the lower density to the higher density. For the past however many years, it's been general planned as low density. And we're jumping from low density to neighborhood commercial as proposed. And so that's my concern, is that they have rights who develop the property, but I also look at the residents next to them and say, hey, I bought here thinking it was gonna be this. Behind my house, it's general planned commercial. Do I want commercial there? No, it's not ideal, but I know it was coming when I bought my house. So that's the difference in my mind. And these things come up where they change. And I think sometimes it makes good sense because 15 years ago, everything was low density out in the fields, everything. And things change. We just need to look at a good feather. I mean, this might be a great feather. I don't know, right? Like I'd have to see a site plan and a layout that go with the PUD and see how that works. Because there was some legitimate concerns. Access was one, sound was one, just those type of things that we have. But I think one thing we got to realize is, and all of us who had fields in our backyards, those fields are going away. And it's that property right that they can change that. But we also have to look at what's a good middle ground between both groups is all I'm saying. But feathering effect, townhomes, you could build more homes, just you could do something different. There's lots of things you can do. I'm not saying this is a bad idea. There's just lots of questions in my mind, and I don't like the neighborhood commercial being general plan this, and I'm concerned about the access.
Good discussion. Councilman Henderson, weigh in.
So, thank you. You know, I share some of these same concerns. I would not be supportive at this time, you know, neighborhood commercial. There's just too many unanswered questions with a neighborhood commercial. But I do like the Planning Commission's recommendation or idea to possibly look at it as a PUDC. I like what Councilman Ivy said about this project being a potential buffer between the homes and other commercial. There's a possibility, maybe even a good possibility in the future. I have no idea who even owns these other parcels, that they could come in for some kind of commercial designation, whether it be a neighborhood commercial or something like that. If all of the parcels were coming in today and asking for some kind of commercial designation, I would be less hesitant to move forward with something, but it concerns me just to have a little commercial tucked up in there, you know, behind those homes, without any other planning taking place. But, you know, the residents have some very legitimate concerns, and we've read those, and I think all of us watched Planning Commission were able to, you know, hear those comments. But, you know, I would be much more comfortable. I mean, I actually like the idea. I really do. Like up in Utah County, I've seen some things like that, little venues tucked into neighborhoods and things like that. I think potentially a little project like this could really preserve the look and feel of the fields. So I actually, to be honest, love the idea of a barn there that's a venue for activities, but there would need to be some, some parameters set, some challenges that would need to be overcome with the access and things like that. But it potentially, like Councilman Ivy said, that could be a great buffer between residential and heavier commercial type things. So anyway, those are just my thoughts. So
Mayor, may I?
thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Ivy. Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilman Henderson.
Appreciate that, yes. So I think what's important is understanding the different zoning that we're looking at tonight because we do this all the time. We understand the differences between entitled zoning, which is neighborhood commercial or PUD. In a PUD-C in this case, the council gets to weigh in on how the project comes forward to make sure that concerns that may be some citizens' concerns, it may be city concerns, it may be others, that all those are addressed in the best manner possible to bring it forward, such as the light, the noise, the road, all those things would be part of that development if it were to be a PUD-C. So in light of that, I think that the council sounds to me like that, Mayor, that the neighborhood commercial is a no-go. But when you're ready and the council has had conversation, I'll take a stab at a motion.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate this. This is great feedback. Drew, what would you add? And then the applicant will for sure get the applicant an opportunity to speak. And again, the council and myself, we watched the Plan Commission, so we do hear those comments. But as an elected body, we're okay to have additional comment here, even though it's not listed as a public hearing. We would just not to hear everything we've already heard. So we like new information or concise information. But before I invite the applicant, Drew, will you just expound a little bit on Councilman Ivy's comments about the difference between NCOM and PUD-C and some of the customization that happens and maybe some of the reasons why the Plan Commission and Council might be more amiable to that?
To start with, going with the NCOM, I mean, it serves its purpose in lots of places. I mean, if you knew you were going to end up with, especially administrative professional, most people wouldn't have a lot of issue with it, right? It's office space, et cetera. It's going to be very quiet. It'll be a 9 to 5 type thing. But the C1, unfortunately, or fortunately, is tagged into, to that neighborhood commercial designation in the general plan as well. That's where you have the, I don't know, it gives you the uncomfortable.
Now contrast that with the PUD.
Now with the PUD, the thing is that they can come back but again, it's all up to finding that. Again, that's where you have as a council more leverage to say, you know what, we still want to keep, just as Councilman, Henderson was talking about, keeping that country feel with that proposal with what they are doing, that we just so happen to have that one on the docket tonight. It could have been something else, but those are the things you can sit and let them know beforehand, especially at this point, to say, well, if we do go that route, here's what we're really looking to see. And you put that in your minutes. Now, could you be held up into that? Probably after so many denials of something, you might end up in court, but that could be with any designation you have and any denials that you give, multiple of. But at least the plan unit development gives you a lot more ability, as it's been said here a couple times tonight, as to mitigate out the concerns of a lot. You can't mitigate out everything, but in a PUD, you can mitigate out a lot of things. And generally, and especially with this particular one, you can take care of a lot of the concerns that are going to be had. So
I think the biggest thing that you haven't quite mentioned, Drew, is that we see the plan, and the plan is the plan, and you can't change the plan just because you sell the property or do something. That is what's approved. Now someone can come back in with a different plan, and at that point, then it'd have to be agreed upon again. I think that's the biggest thing is with the other zones, you don't get to see the plan.
Well, and I think
unless it's a conditional use permit, right?
Well, even in
you
a
would,
conditional
but even
use
then,
permit, you're
but they're
allowed
still
the
permitted
uses.
uses with conditions upon them. That's a great point that Councilman Coates is saying there. But with the PUD, it's a lot more framework that, you know, I've always called it negotiating zoning, because that's exactly what planned unit development is. I don't care what city you're in, they all have their different variations, but it's still negotiating, getting the best product for the area and the surrounding area. And it can change whatever the surroundings are, and that's what's great about it, is that you can tie that in.
And
Now, my biggest fears, and I will tag on to that, is they were talking about if this ended up, the worst case scenario for these people would, in standard zoning, the buffer could end up right there on the other side of that canal, and it could be townhomes. It could be fourplexes, sixplexes, things like that, because that's what you do in between commercial and residential, is you have high density. And I don't know how many people know, you know, everybody's been on the council for a while. That's some of the things that people don't want to see either right behind them. So that's a thing you can weigh out in here and not have that. Your buffer can be something else, like this kind of a venue.
Thank you, Drew.
So Drew, can I just ask clarification, Mayor? So what you're saying is with the PUDC, with their application they're bringing forward, that's the only thing we're looking at. If they wanted to change that to something else in the future, they would have to start over again and bring a whole new.
That's
So
right.
but in regular zoning, not in this case, but in you might have a convenience store, you might have a shopping center. You have that option within the zone, but on PUDC, the project that they're bringing forward, the application is specific to this event or this situation or this particular item, and nothing else could be done unless there was a totally new application.
Unless you gave them that privy, you know, that's the only way they could have it. You could say, we're going to approve in this PUD, we love your building design, but we will approve you to have any of the C1 uses. You can do that in your
So
PUD as
we're
well.
going down a little bit of a rabbit hole on zoning, which we don't need to do. But the reality is what the councilman saying is the PUD gives assurance, and what you see is what you get. At this point, I'll invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to come forward. Mr. Liu, if you'll just state your name, and you've been before us many times. It's always good to see you here, our friend.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Council members, good to see you, and I appreciate your time. Appreciate the discussion. I think it was all great points. Since Planning Commission, we have talked with the client, and they are here this evening. Access, big concern on ours as well. We did run a rough measurement. It's about 197 feet from Merrill Road to the intersection, which even on a right in, right out, we don't feel comfortable about having it there. What we're looking at doing, or with the client's help, is meeting with the property owners on the northeast corner of the current property that's outlined there, and trying to figure out a way if we can get some easement or right-of-way access off of the Fields Road and going to the top corner and building that out to spec to make sure that it meets the requirements to facilitate a proposed use that we're proposing here in the future.
Did you say northeast corner?
I mean, northwest, sorry. Is at that top corner on the left
So
side.
you would work toward Washington Fields Road?
Yeah, so coming in off of Washington Fields Road.
Okay, just wanted to make sure you weren't trying to run a commercial through a residential and then back.
No.
Just clarifying.
I apologize. I grew up in Hawaii. We just go around in circles.
It's the ocean. You point toward the ocean.
That's it. But again, understand the concern with access, and I think there is a way to work with the neighboring property owners to address that, and address that well with city codes as far as the width of that access and what that needs to look like. And I think with the Planning Commission, some of the good neighbors had concerns, obviously with traffic, with noise, with dust, with parking, with access, and with buffers. So I think if we, whether this evening or in the future, are allowed to pursue the PUD route or the PUDC route, it gives us the opportunity to address all those concerns and make sure that, you know, those concerns are met before there is a final approval of a proposed project that we and the client is proposing to present in this location.
So, Mr. Luke, maybe just to clarify, is the applicant wanting to pursue the PUD route at this point then, or how far are they wanting to push for the NCOM general plan amendment?
Absolutely, because again, after the discussion and after going through the planning commission, we all are afraid of the unknowns. And we do want to address the unknowns and the concerns of the neighbors and try and address it the best way we can. And really the tool we think is in place to do that would be through a PUD or PUDC opportunity or process.
I think we're on the same page then. Council, any questions or interaction with the applicant's representative or the applicant here?
No, I appreciate your comments, Matt. I just want to, it's more of just there's a lot of ifs still for me. And I'll just be honest, I'm not ready to move forward on this tonight because I think you got to figure out your access issue. And I understand this is just a general plan. Realistically, if you're talking with that property owner, I'd like the whole thing PUD. And I don't think we should limit it to just commercial. We'll just say PUD right now as a general plan, and then come back and put your proposal for your zone when you're ready to put your zone together and give a plan of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because this whole area could be PUD and have some residential, some commercial, some everything. So that's where I'm at, but I don't think you're ready, in my opinion, because you got to figure out your access issue. That's where I'm at.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Good feedback. Any additional feedback for the applicant? Thank you, Mr. Liu.
Thank you, council.
So we did hear the public comments, and I recognize many of you and from my neighborhood, but also from the other night. Is there anything that we didn't hear the other night that could or should be said succinctly without opening up a door? I think everyone kind of knows the direction we're going right now is to bring this back with a more detailed plan of what's coming forward. So I see one hand. Any others? I'll allow for it too. Mrs. Rowley and the gentleman in the back. Let's go in that order. You first, and then Stephanie. And then if you'll just state your name for the record, and again, we're looking for additional information that we may not have heard the other night.
Hey, Mayor, while he's walking up, I just want to thank you, the residents who did submit email. It was very thought out email with the concerns, and I appreciate that because it gives us time to digest them and read those. So,
Yeah, good
thank
point.
you.
Go ahead, sir.
My name is Rick Facer, and I live directly to the east of the Burnett's home, 2572 South Camino Real. It's third house in from Lost Ridge Road. My view is that entire corner there. I've been in this neighborhood for 18 years, and as Councilman Coates mentioned, we've all been there for quite a long time, and we've all known that this would eventually go to residential. We'd love to see it stay pasture, but we know that's not necessarily practical. So our biggest, I did a lot of the canvassing of the neighborhood, gathering a big portion of the signatures against this proposed change in zone. And a lot of the concerns I heard were that people did not want commercial in this corner. We just don't feel there's a need to have businesses out here. If you look around the corner of the mountain to the new gas station and car wash, it's a ghost town over there. I've only seen 2 cars at that gas station, and I'm typically used to seeing things at Mavericks where there's almost no parking at those businesses. So I don't feel that there's a need to change the zoning for this corner. And so that's one of my primary concerns with this project and the discussion that's going on there. I'd love to see this left as residential, not high density, not 7-Elevens or anything like that. So
Thank you, Mr. Facer. Now, did you have family that lived across the street to the west?
Yes, my father was Conrad Facer.
And remind me your mother's name.
Carlene.
Oh, they were the nicest people in the world.
Yeah.
We sure loved when they lived there.
Yeah, I lived there with them also for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then moved across the pasture. And so that corner's been my view for 18
Yeah,
years. And I'd love to see it stay the same, but again, we know that's not necessarily practical or reasonable, but so.
Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Rick. Stephanie, if you come forward, and this will be the last one we'll take tonight. You get the last word, at least on this item.
My name is Stephanie Raleigh. Thank you so very much. I just have a quick question in regards to if this goes through and it's passed as the PUC. Is that correct?
PUD, so that stands for
PUD.
Planned Unit Development Commercial.
Will all of the neighborhoods have the opportunity again to sit in and see what the plans are, and so we can once again
The
say
noticing
either
and
yay
the
or
process
nay,
starts
or-
over.
Okay.
Yep, really good question, but yes, so that process goes back to square one, and we go through that staff
will all get notices
developer,
again in the mail
plan
like-
commission, council, with every opportunity, and that's what I think is quite remarkable about this. We build these communities together with, you know, our seats rotate from those in your seats, and
Do we have any idea the number of how many, if this is a venue like they said, how many people are going to be allowing there?
so.
Traffic concerns, or
So,
is that not something that's been addressed yet?
At the general plan level, we may not dive deep into that. I can
Okay.
ask the applicant
Okay.
if they want to talk about that, but I can do that. What other comments do you have?
That
or
was
questions?
it. I just wanted to make sure
Do you
that
want
we
to
had.
add anything to that,
I was just
Councilman?
gonna mention, and I always think of it on the general plan, there's not really entitlements with the general plan for their property, it's just generally what we wanna see. Their entitlements come with the zoning, and that'll be the next phase, and the same process will go again. So if this was, but for your zoning, you have to match the general plan. So that's why they're changing the general plan now, so if they wanna change their zone to get their entitlements on the land. Does that? does that
The
make
general plan is future use, and the zoning is the entitled, or what we're going to use it for now.
Okay.
So there would be, it's kind of a two-step process. The applicant, this application tonight is to change the general plan designation. Then they would need to come back with the zoning that's consistent with the general plan designation. So in this case, it starts back over at the general plan designation stage before it goes to a zoning stage again. And each of those follow the same process
Okay.
with the noticing and the public comment.
Because our house backs up right to their.
I know where you live
property.
too, yes.
Yeah, so we look right out there over all the cows and horses and stuff, so.
It's wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate you being here tonight. Would the applicant like to address any of those questions? Do you have any thoughts? Give you an opportunity, Mr. Burnett, if you just state your name for the record there.
Yes, I'm Brian Burnett, so I live in that house right there. And we missed the planning commission.
Show them the house, Drew, so they know this is it's now the Burnett house. It was the Jan Harmon house.
So yeah, this whole area was owned by a one family a long time ago. And so we're the first family to come in. And to the north is the Hafens, Kitty Corner is the Chipmans, and then to the west is the Esplins. So if I was a smart man and I didn't graduate from college, I would just wait and build apartments there. We own a lot of multifamily, and honestly, it would make financial sense to do so. But we have a vision for this property. You know, we live in Washington Fields. In a few years, they'll wonder why they even call it Washington Fields. There will be no fields. And so the vision that we have is we would love to see like a beautiful big white wedding barn. We travel back east a lot, and there's a lot of beautiful barns. In fact, we've been previewing back east barns built in the 1800s that we would deconstruct and then use as part of our building material. And we would put it on the west. We would love to go through PUD and let you guys kind of tell us how to do it to make it best for everybody. But it would be on the west side of those fields, leaving a huge buffer. We'd love to see those fields to the north of our house stay fields forever and preserve the heritage. We met with the Chipmans, who her brother was Mr. Harmon, and at one time he was the only house there. And when Lost Ridge went in and Camino Real, he was devastated at the time, you know, especially right behind us where the McAllister home, and there's a 2-story home, like right on him. And he was devastated at the time. And so it's just hard because when change comes, It happens, and a lot of the people that are concerned here, you know, the home they live in did the same thing to somebody. But I'm in development, I'm in real estate. I've seen these things happen, and I truly believe what we could do is the best possible scenario. Preserving the fields, preserving the look, and making a good buffer from the commercial in Washington Fields. Now, we've spoken to the Espelins. They're open to widening that lane as much as we need. But I also like the idea on that north side is doing another road. But you probably need to decide what you want to do with those two fields eventually.
Talk about the use, kind of the vision that you and Jenica have.
Yeah. My wife's the visionary, so I would just do apartments, honestly. I would love that. But she, right now, so we took this old farm. It was pretty run down. We've put a lot of money into it. She's built a flower farm due west to the house. Beautiful. She technically can't even sell flowers off of it right now. But it's a
We
beautiful.
won't tell anybody if she does.
Yeah. And she does weddings. And if you go around town right now, there are no wedding venues. There's a lot of people using houses right now, probably illegally. I won't say their names, but they're in the middle of neighborhoods. People are parking everywhere. There's no regulations. Like, I feel like we could do this right. I know people are concerned about the noise. Like where our road is right now, it's gravel, and we drive down it all day, and there's dust everywhere. It's loud. We would obviously asphalt that. We're planting trees and bushes all along the edge to create privacy. I mean, we would do whatever it takes. Whatever we do is going to be absolutely beautiful.
Do you want to talk about water or anything like that?
We have I think we have 7 shares of water, and ideally we'd like to see a pond out there with a fountain in the middle, and we would pressurize our pastures. So
Is that canal water?
Yeah, canal water. I know the city wants to put like a walking path to the east there, so we're open to participating.
Yeah. And you understand, we had probably more of an in-depth conversation about PUD than we need to, but you understand that concept, obviously, and you feel like that's a good concept for you?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, if you went straight commercial, we could literally do anything, and it would be kind of weird.
And that's where kind of the protective nature of the bodies come in. We just like those assurances if you give something that's, and it also gives the neighborhood assurances too, because it's hard and it's interesting when you contrast the different things you could do. But I'm gonna, is there anything else you'd like to add while you have the mic there, Brian?
No, man, we just want to say thanks to our neighbors. Most of them have been super nice, and we don't want to, cause any problems. And I know eventually this would happen, and we're kind of speeding it up a little bit, but I do believe it's the best case scenario.
Okay, so it's likely that this council is going to gently deny your recommendation tonight, but.
I'm actually not saying that, Mayor. That's what I wanted to ask.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Councilman.
So what I would recommend we do is we table the item. I mean, and then we start looking at, my biggest thing, I think the whole area should be PUD. I don't think it should be PUDC, PUR, PUD for the general plan. And then we can table the item, you figure out your access issue, and then we can relook at it. And then we might have a plan. That's how I look at it, is I'm not against it, but I'm not for it because I have too many concerns right now.
Yeah.
And there's lots of concerns from the residents. Feel like if we can show a way to buffer it, then we can do it. So that's kind of how I'm feeling.
Okay.
But if we want, we can just deny it too, and then you can come back with a plan when you're ready. But what I don't want is I don't want to table it and then 6 months later you come back.
I guess that kind of lends to ask you the question, what's your timeline on that? I mean, with a PUD, it means a detailed site plans, elevations, the whole 9 yards.
So we've.
But this one's just the general plan.
That's right.
I'm just asking to have at least the access figured out.
Okay.
And then if it makes sense, I would hope that we could do all the way to Washington Fields Road. I don't know if the property owner to the west wants to be a part of that or what, and just, it's continuous, and we do PUDs, if everyone likes the idea, and then we can look at the plan when we get to the zoning. I just think that's why when I talked to Mr. Liu, is that I feel like it's out of place because it's back in the corner. We're not dealing with the access, and so I felt like it wasn't quite ready yet to look at it as a PUD.
We've got a couple, Councilman want to comment. Who wants to go first? Councilman Henderson, then Councilman Ivy?
No, I was just gonna say that I wouldn't want to hold up the Burnett's waiting for other property owners that may not be ready to decide what they want to do. But I was going to ask you while you're up there, Mr. Britt, so as you were speaking, I thought of the Segmiller barn that's over at 2450 South, 3000 East. We actually had all our legislators were in town. We had a really nice luncheon there about a year ago. That's kind of what my mind goes to when you're talking. It's a barn that was constructed. There's wedding venues there. There's birthday parties. Is that kind of the intended use that would have hours that are regulated? It wouldn't be, you'd have a shutdown at 10 o'clock or whatever that might be. It's very low impact as far as outdoor lighting. You don't need intense, like you're not playing baseball there. It's more of just lighting so you can see. Is that, because that's the only thing that I have to go by is what I've seen there, and that's what I've seen there.
Yeah, we would love low lighting that you would allow us to have. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, weddings, just like Sigmler, but just a lot nicer.
Okay. Councilman Henderson?
I don't have any further comments, Mayor. So.
Councilman Casperson? So I do need, Mrs. Raleigh, I anticipated what my council might do. They're an unpredictable bunch here sometimes. So if they did table it, it would not come back through the same process, obviously. So I just want to make sure that was clear. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Council, further discussion and further questions for the applicant?
So the only thing I have is it can't be over a month. We gotta have this figured out. And if we can't get it in a month, we should just start the process over. Just because things change.
Do you feel like you could have some of those questions for the general plan phase done within a month if we table this for the first meeting in June? So it'll be the second Wednesday in June?
Mayor, may I make a point of order before you go?
Councilman Ivey.
Point of order, please.
Councilman Ivey.
Judge, what I'm thinking is I'm hearing denial, but I know in the past.
We're hearing tabling right now.
We're in tabling right now. What if there was an appetite to make a motion to approve for a PUDC currently?
So you've heard me state multiple times a concern with tabling.
Not tabling, but approving for,
yes, I just wanted to start there.
Okay, sorry.
That was in the realm of zoning decisions where there's vested property rights that an applicant could bring a lawsuit about. It's my opinion to the council that in the general plan, the applicant has no vested rights. What they're trying to do is lead the council into amending the council's plan so that they could then bring a zone designation that is consistent with what they would like to do with the land. And so I think you could table this one for 36 months if you wanted. I wouldn't recommend that, that's too long, but the advice I've given the council on tabling zoning applications is different when it comes to your general plan and the applicant has no vested right in your decision. Now, your decision, if it's to pass neighborhood commercial or PUDC or to table, that obviously has an impact on this applicant, but they don't have an application with the city at this point that has the administrative process that can lead to a vested right. And so I think the council has some leeway. To answer your direct question, because it's the city council's general plan, I think that you could make a motion to approve a PUDC tonight and that we've done the adequate process to give you the legal basis to make that decision if that's what the council wants to do.
Mayor, may I have that conversation with the council?
Council, yeah, you've heard the back and forth with the attorney and councilman.
So I'm just going to share my thoughts is that I think in any scenario here tonight, whether you're talking about the city, you're talking about the neighbors, you're talking about the applicant, I think we all agree that a planned unit development is the way forward to move this project regardless. It's not going to be NCOM and it's not going to be a C1. So what my thoughts are is that if we're going to end up there anyway, because I am concerned with the neighborhood. This is the way to protect them every step of the way. And it's not an entitlement tonight. What we're saying is rather than neighborhood commercial, we're going to do a PUD, which is every step of the way it's brought in, it's vetted, it's purified and all those type of things. But I do understand that it wasn't noticed that way. But where we're going to land there anyway, I just wondered if the council has an appetite to bring this forward tonight as a PUDC and allow them to start at a higher level where the homeowners, the applicant, the city all has kind of that same interest in the same outcome, the way I see it. I don't see that there's a benefit tonight to deny when it's going to come back for the very item that we have the ability tonight to approve if we so choose. So council, Mayor.
Yeah.
That's my comments. I just don't want to waste anyone's time or say, if this comes back in 2 weeks, we're going to arrive at the same decision that we could be at tonight, because that seems like where it's going to go. I mean, there's rights here from the homeowners, there's rights here from the property owners. It just seems like this is a mutual benefit to all parties involved, Mayor.
You've heard the councilman's comments.
Councilman Ivy, I get where you're coming from. What's holding me back is we don't have the access figured out. So I don't want to, even though it's not an entitlement, it's still a perceived that we're going down that road. But until we get the access figured out, I have a really hard time changing the zone from a standard
general
single
plan.
family.
And the last thing I want to do is
general plan.
ask the council to do anything you're not comfortable with.
So that's where I'm landing.
That
just
was a
so
question that I felt was important to ask, because it just seems like we're mutually in agreement that that's where we're going to end up. So if that's an issue, then of course I understand that.
So whatever goes here, you'd have to figure out, let's say they decided to do, if we did a PUD and they decided to do residential homes here, you'd still have to figure out access no matter what is going here. And so if we approved a PUD tonight, then that access would have to be, no matter what they put here, they have to have access to this, to their parcel.
But typically we wouldn't allow a change until we have the access figured out. I mean, that's a pretty big deal when you're back in a corner is how I.
At a general plan, you need to know the access typically.
You should, when you got a plan like this, I think you do. When you're changing it so drastically from what it was.
I don't think there's any entitlements tonight with this.
Administratively, we look at access when we've either got a zone type that has access concerns, but even at zoning, we typically don't worry about access unless it's a PUD zone that allows us to really dig in and require site plans and things. Typically, the access, that box must be checked or the project is stopped when they're submitting things like building permits or the type of applications that would actually put a use on the surface. If they don't have the adequate access, that's when the city would stop that project. They could, in theory, go get zoning and not have adequate access and take that risk upon themselves. And our process would permit that.
Just to the applicant here, or the applicant's representative, do you think if the council decided to table this, do you think you would have more clarification on access within a month, within 2 months? Hard to say. Come on forward, Brian, come and just speak into the mic. Thank you.
Okay, so the Esplins to the west, we've had a lot of talks to them, and they're definitely open to it because they can't even access their fields unless they go on my property. Because there's Washington Fields Road, there's no entrance there. So they don't really have access to their property. So I said, well, let's come up with a solution that helps all of us. We may need to either widen it, or maybe we come in on the north, whatever is best. And they're totally open to it.
Do you have a preference as to trying to table and trying to maybe work through some of the access questions?
I mean,
or would you rather start the process over?
I would just approve, like,
Or would you rather have an approval for PUD? It sounds like all those are on the table with this council right now.
I would rather have approval for PUD because I couldn't guarantee you access until we have a written agreement with the Esplins, but I don't know what we'll need unless you guys tell us what we can do with the PUD. So the access will determine that, and then we can work it out with Esplins and Chipmans.
Okay.
So I would like to see just a PUD.
So if you can't have the PUD, what's your second option?
Apartments.
Well, that's not happening.
Eventually, I'll just wait.
Nah, you can wait all you want. Guarantee it's not gonna happen there. Wow.
Then I'll just live
speaking
there
for
and enjoy the
himself
farm.
there. That's
What's
not
that?
the council.
What?
He's speaking for himself.
Oh, okay, yeah.
not
You
the
guys can
only
figure that out
only
later.
one No, I get where you're coming from, but I guess my question is, the way I look at it, and what I'm hearing the council is we have three options. One, approve, which you're asking, which I understand that's your recommendation. That would be mine too, if it was my project. Two would be table, give me a couple weeks to work on this. Or three, deny, and we'll just resubmit and have everything figured out before we come back, or have more, not everything,
Yeah.
right? So I hope you see, we're not trying to hurt you, we're just trying to protect you and understand. The way I looked at it is, our process has gotten pretty smooth. I mean, you were in planning commission last week and you're here this week. That's way different than it was a few years ago. You'd have to wait 3 weeks, right? So it's months and months where you submit 3 weeks prior, so it's like a month and a half process, give or take. We can table it for a month, or for me, right, I'm just one, we can table it for a month. You can work on some of the stuff, you don't go back through the process, or we deny it, you go back and work on it, and I think we waive the fees that he's already paid and just go through that process is how I'm looking at it. What do you think, Jeremy? You just looked at me funny.
You had me up until the waive fees. No, I'm just kidding.
Very good city manager, by the way.
Mayor, may I say something?
Go ahead.
Another thing that was mentioned in planning commission that I have been thinking about is a lot of times we don't even know what the project is. We have no idea at this stage, at general planning stage. And so in a lot of ways, like if I had no idea that it was gonna be an event center that looks like a barn and stuff like that, I would deny the application for neighborhood commercial, just a flat denial and say, come back with something else. So in a way, I'm not sure if we're doing the right thing by, looking at the proposed possible use of this and, kind of farting around with it. And so I'm kind of thinking maybe the best thing to do, the cleanest thing would be just to deny the neighborhood commercial. You've heard what we have to say about it and what, basically kind of what we'll take a look at, and then have you come back later with a application for a PUD with information about your access and stuff like that. To me, that might be the cleanest way to do it.
Okay. Is that a motion, Councilman, or is that
I
a
can go ahead
comment?
and make a motion if you'd like me to, Mayor. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we deny an ordinance for a general plan amendment, G-24-03, from low density to neighborhood commercial located at 2651 South Washington Fields Road.
You've heard the motion by Councilman Henderson, a second by Councilman Coates. This is an ordinance, so we'll go roll call, starting with Councilman Coates.
Aye.
Councilman Ivy.
Nay.
Casperson.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
You've heard the result of the vote. We will see you back here. Hopefully all of you, hopefully we can get something there that's going to work really well for all of the interested and concerned parties who call this beautiful area home. Thank you, and don't feel like you have to stay for the rest of the meeting if you were just here for this item. Next item is 7C, which is consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change Z-24-03 from AP Administrative Professional to C1 Commercial, located at 750 West Merrill Road. The applicant is Rosenberg and Associates, and the staff representative will be City Planner Eldon Gibb. Mr. Gibb.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The requested change is from the current zoning of administrative professional to a proposed neighborhood commercial zoning designation. The C1 request is for the purpose of allowing C1 uses in addition to the current administrative professional uses. This particular location has a general plan land use designation of neighborhood commercial, which supports the administrative professional and community commercial zoning districts. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is residential estate to the north, Civic to the east, and St. George City boundary to the south and west. Staff is concerned with losing Class A office space, but also sees the benefit of providing quality neighborhood commercial space as well. Planning Commission reviewed this request on May 1st, 2024, and unanimously recommended approval of Z-24-03 for the zone change request from administrative professional to a proposed neighborhood commercial zoning designation. And that was on to City Council based on the findings as stated in the report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Council, what questions do you have for the city planner? Do you have questions for the applicant?
I think it's a beautiful building, and I think it'll be good use. So if there's no questions,
I actually have a question. Why are we changing from AP to C1? Why? What is there a use that's changed?
It's the uses is why. AP doesn't allow for any retail or anything like what they wanted. They have a client, as stated, that's coming in and wants the bottom floor. They have a school already contracted to go in floors number 2 and 3. I think it's a nursing school of some sort or that, but they have a client that wants to come in, but their business model doesn't meet administrative professional, just sheer office. They have a little boutique they want to put in, but they also do wedding events, other events, corporate events, things like that, that they could do, you know, kind of ceremonies, dinners, things like that of other sorts that they could do in there. That's the only reason why, because the uses that their business does do not fit.
It's not about the food trucks?
The food trucks are staying.
Okay.
They love the food trucks, so we'll have Greg come up.
And I see the applicant here. Do you have anything to add to that, Mr. MacArthur? Come on forward. And I should have just called you. I'm sorry. He usually does a great job, usually.
Mayor, Council, thank you. My name is Greg MacArthur. I'm one of the building owners here. So just to answer your question, just to add to what Drew said, we do have a client. The reason we're coming tonight is we do have a client that will be taking half of the bottom floor, that's looking at taking half the bottom floor. They're an event center, basically, daytime, nighttime events, and that just falls outside of AP.
The irony that we spent the last hour on a potential event center.
Yeah, so we're in favor of that too. I mean, I think there's a need for event centers here. This is a little bit smaller one that would fit inside of an office building type situation. That first floor of this office building has some exterior entrances. So it has the main entrance that goes in the middle, but also has some exterior that can go into this event center space. So it would work kind of a hybrid between, you know, it's meeting space, which is office building has, but also can have a little bit of a retail feel to it too. So that's the reason for the change. To answer your question on the food trucks on the corner, that's actually going really well. So we have no intent of changing anything right there. We really like them right now.
And it gives a little character to the area.
Yeah, so we really like it. So that's the main reason. We do have a school. That's the top floor. Second floor, we have a dentist, and then a physical therapist. First floor is this event space on half of it, and the other one we haven't identified yet.
It's fantastic. Thank you for building such a great project there. And thank you for just more curiosity than anything. So
hey, sure thing. Happy to.
Now we'll get back to what you came for tonight, which is the vote. Is someone ready to make a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion. We approve zone change Z-24-03 from AP to C1 located at 750 West Merrill Road.
You've heard Councilman Coates' motion. Is there a second?
Mayor, I've looked into this use, and I think it's a great use for that, and I second the motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Coates, second by Councilman Ivey. We'll go roll call starting with Councilman Ivey.
Aye.
Casperson.
I'm just wondering if you want to vote on this one, so if I should.
I thought I might have to vote on the last one. Thank you, by the way. You paused before the one.
I mean, we could do that.
I was just bragging a few weeks ago that I was confident that this council would never put me in a position where I had to actually vote. My days of voting are over.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Coates. And I still dodged the bullet.
Aye.
It's a unanimous decision. Thank you, Mr. MacArthur. Hopefully you enjoyed, we always enjoy seeing you, so thank you for being here this evening for this item and for having your engineer be here as well. Thank you, guys. Okay, that is the meat and potatoes of the meeting tonight. We'll move on to item 8, which is a report of officers from assigned committees. And we just typically start to my left. Councilman Henderson, do you have anything to report?
Mayor, I don't. I sure enjoyed the Cotton Days. Was it last week or a couple weeks ago? It was great.
It's a blur.
I love the Cotton Days. But I do have a meeting with the Mosquito District tomorrow, so next time I'll have a report for you from there.
Great, thank you. Councilman Coates.
We had a power board last night, but you saw what Rick asked us to do today, so that was the gist of it. One of the things he is working on is, I mentioned the updated master plan for the area, and he talked about the Grapevine Trailhead. So that's the gist of the power board. And then we had Finance Committee. What is it, Jeremy? Investment. Drew a blank there. Investment Committee the other night. And I think we're in really good hands. We have a lot of good investments. Some are rolling off. A lot of the old low percentage ones are rolling off, and we're getting the higher ones, which are nice. So I think we're really healthy. It's good. I tell you, it's amazing what that investment does and helps our community and helps funds. So we're doing really good there, and we have a good staff that watch it for us. So
those are good assignments. Thank you. Councilman Ivey.
A couple of things, Mayor. First of all, I did a ride along with Police Department last Thursday, and I was with Sergeant Wilstead, who's now, one of his assignments is over the animal care facility. And when we got in his car and pulled out, he goes, "Well, it's pretty boring with me. I hope I don't just, you're not bored." And we pulled down the street, and a little dog ran right out in front of us.
Was it yours? Was it your Jack Russell?
Not mine. But he got out, and it was really interesting seeing that big tough cop chasing that little dog around, and we were able to catch him. But the story is that we took him down to the dog pound, and the little dog had his phone number. He was not chipped, which was disappointing, but he had a phone number, and they called and finally figured out the phone number. There's one extra number, but they finally figured it out. And the lady, when she come down to pick him up, it was her comment that I wanted to share. And she goes, "I just don't know if people could expect this level of service anywhere else." And it was just a little dog, but it was her dog. And animals are so important. But I wanted to mention, Mayor, that while we were there, we discussed and looked at some of the improvements that they've made to the animal shelter. And it was interesting to note that the cat room only had a mom and little kittens. So if anyone wants a kitten, they should be ready in about 4 to 6 weeks. But dogs are maintaining about the same number. But in looking at the way that corner's building out with the potential sale of the Kirkland property, Kidding Corridor, and all that down there, that is very valuable property. And at some point, they're going to need to expand. There's some natural elements of that shelter that are not inherent to the building to make it most convenient and comfortable for work and to spray things down and things like that. But there was, I started just a little conversation of what that would look like in the future if this council ever wanted to dispose of that property and then put it on property that we already own, what that would look like. But it was just a conversation that for the future, but it was a good conversation, and they're doing well there. We still have some volunteers that come in. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, Mayor, other than my appreciation for the police department, the tribute that you read earlier today reminds us of exactly what that service looks like, and I appreciate you reading that. But the other item I wanted to bring up was at DTAC this last week, the staff from Dixie MPO brought forward the household travel survey preliminary results, which is part of the Utah State Unified Transportation Plan. That can be found at unifiedplan.org, but it just has all the elements of travel and being able to make a city very fluid in being able to move people around. It identifies a lot of those different ways to travel. It was very, very interesting. And I have other notes here, Mayor, but I would just invite anyone that would like to look at that. It's unifiedplan.org. There's a lot of great information there. We were well represented in that meeting. We had 2 staff members there, And I got looking at that and thought I'd mention it because it really is some good information on ideas about how to keep Washington moving and getting people where they need to go with the least amount of effort. So that's all I've got, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Good report. Councilwoman Casperson.
I had an active transportation meeting today, and I just wanted to share appreciation for Paul and other staff members who were at the Cotton Days. They were there speaking about our trails, and then they handed out some helmets for kids and some bells for safety and talking about safety. And so just wanted to share, just to appreciate, all the work that the staff does for our community. And
Well said. Thank you. I've got at our next workshop session a few representatives from the Washington County Water Conservancy District to give an update on conservation measures and the 20-year water supply plan that I think you'll find interesting. So my report will be then. Next item is the city manager report. Jeremy.
Thank you, Mayor. Just give you a couple of updates. The gym remodel is moving along. It's in staff review right now, plan review. Should begin the first part of June. So we'll start, now we got through Cotton Days, we'll start in earnest on that remodel. I just want to give you an update. I enjoyed our last public comment period so much. I want to give you an update from some of the comments from Mr. Staley at the last meeting. The bat issue in the museum is being addressed. Apparently they are a endangered species. We have to do some things to make sure that we take care of those bats.
The bats.
In a proper way.
Are they by the asbestos?
We thought we had it taken care of and we had sealed everything off, but somehow those bats have got back in the attic. The plan to address the temporary handicap access is a handicap ramp that will allow people to get into the museum while we're under construction on the remodel. That's preferable to trying to shut down our remodel and move a handicapped person through our construction site. So that's the plan we're heading to. The old fire station garage has been cleaned out. It'll be used for staging during that remodel for keeping items. And then after that, we intend to remove that building and add extra parking. I'll just add on to what Councilwoman Casperson mentioned. I think everybody recognizes we had the county fair parade, we had Cotton Days, and then we had the Ironman in 3 consecutive weeks. So I just echo her appreciation for, not only the council, but the staff, everybody who worked really hard to get all those events put together. There was a lot of effort that went into that, and they represented the city very well, and we could be really proud of the effort that Washington City put forward on all of those events. So that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for all you do.
Mayor, can I address Cotton Days?
Go ahead.
I'm just disappointed that none of you got to hang out with Brett and I in the parade.
Oh, did you take the truck or the car?
We took Big Red, didn't we?
Okay.
Yeah. And the windows are small enough that my arm was sore from throwing candy because it was just like a
little T-Rex throws.
I had my son Cooper in the back throwing candy at us so we could throw it out fast as we could.
Well, thank you for representing.
It was fun. I love parades, I decided.
I was packing a U-Haul and all right. Next item on the agenda is closed session. As stated, we do need to move it to closed session for purchase, exchange, or release of property pending or potential litigation and character or professional competence of an individual. I'll call for a motion to move into closed session.
Second.
A motion by Henderson, second by Coates. We'll go roll call. Henderson, Coates, Ivy, Casperson.
Aye.
And I dodged it one more time. We'll move into closed session. Thank you, everyone.